Did you grow up with music in your house, playing music on the radio, singing in the choir, playing an instrument? I did, and I love exposing my own kids to music in all shapes and forms. What I didn't know until after I started having kids and attended my first music together class was just how instrumental of a role music plays in early childhood development. Hi, welcome back to Project Parenthood. I am your host, Chelsea Dorsich, licensed marriage family therapist in California. I am here to join you on your conscious parenting journey, bringing more curiosity, openness, acceptance, kindness, and non-judgment along the way. My goal is for us to accept what is out of our control, commit to improving our parenting life, and discover better outcomes for ourselves and our family. Today, we have guest Jennie Ribadeneira. She has been the director of Capital City Music Together for the last 18 years. She has her elementary teaching credential as well as a master's in education. Jennie grew up in a family with lots of singing. She took piano, majored in musical theater, studied dance for decades, and had formal vocal training in college. She is also the mother of two. Research shows that active music making creates unique connections in the brain that support your child's language, social, emotional, cognitive, and physical development too. When children learn music, they are learning how to sing in tune and how to keep a beat, and they are simultaneously increasing their confidence, creativity, and self-expression. See where you can add more music-making opportunities in your home, no matter your kids' ages. Hi, Jennie. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, Chelsea. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I was hoping to pick your brain today about just all this fascinating research about the importance of music in early childhood. And I know when you do your classes, you definitely dive into that with the parents that are there. And what is it that you just love to make sure it gets across to parents and the importance of music when they're here with their children?
Yeah. So interestingly, I think most American families think of music education as something that you start with your kids when they're 8 or 9 or ready to pick up a guitar or a piano or whatever. But actually what happens in the brain is that music development starts much, much, much earlier, basically from the time they can hear, right? So here's a misconception that many people will say to me. They'll say, oh, we just don't have the music gene in our family. So parents will avoid music. They won't even think their kids will be interested in music. And they certainly wouldn't think of like singing songs and doing dance parties and things throughout their day as their kids are growing up. But here's the way that music development works. So musical genius may be something that is genetically linked. But basic music skills, like the foundational music skills of moving to the beat and singing in tune, are something that every healthy, normal human brain comes pre-wired for that. So, which many people don't understand. So, as long as kids are given the right environment, they will develop these basic foundational skills of how to move to the beat and how to sing in tune, right? But the reason why we don't have like this entire society of people that are singing beautifully in tune all the time is because the environment has to be a certain way. So it's like our little brains come with the hardware, but what we need is the software to lay on top of it. And what that is for children to be actively involved in live music making activities from the ages of about 0 to about 7. Okay. So once they hit that age 7, 8 years old, they can pick up these skills, but it's much harder. It's kind of like picking up a foreign language when you're 30 as opposed to when you're 1, right?
Right.
So here's the thing, and this is something that I also hear all the time, is people will say, oh, we're good. We listen to music all the time, right?
Right.
But they're missing part of this, which is that kids actually have to be actively involved in music making activities. So if what you're doing with your kids is you're playing them this wide variety of music, it's certainly a good place to start. But what your child is going to do is they're going to just passively consume the music, and their brains aren't necessarily going to be like jumping in and actively engaging in the music as they would if they were like moving their bodies, or you put instruments in their hand, or you sang with them or sang to them or rocked them as you were singing to them. Okay. These are all ways that you actively engage their brains.
So there's that difference of just putting the radio on or playing your Amazon or Google and just saying play music, or on the radio in the car. There's a big difference between just having that passive absorption versus the active.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you think of it like this, I sometimes give this example. I think we in our generation and, the next generation of parents, is spends a lot of time concerned about their kids' social skills, right?
Right.
So if
Absolutely.
you, yeah, I mean, we talk about it all the time, and many people, that's like such a main concern. But it's kind of like if you were thinking, I know I'll teach my kids good social skills by watching a video of other kids socializing, right? Like you would never do that. You want your kid to be in the party or at the park with the other kids and working it out and figuring it out. Well, this is the same thing with music. So if all your child was ever exposed to is recorded music, especially like that professionals were singing, right? So it's finely tuned and they have fully edited. And if that's all they're ever exposed to, then they're not going to see, oh, this music thing is something that all humans do and can do, right? Like we think of with walking or talking or social skills.
That's such a great comparison because it's so true that we actually social skills and all other things we learn better from experience by having that exposure with kids.
Exactly.
So it's so interesting that I myself never even thought of it that way. It was just like, oh, we're like listening to music. So it's always you have that beat in the background. And I guess one of the things, and I think you've answered this for me, but me, our listeners, like I always was concerned. Well, I mean, I sang to my kids, but it was always like that. Oh, I don't know if I carry a tune actually the right way. So maybe I shouldn't be singing to them if it's not the right tune. Is that actually hold up?
Yeah, no, that's such a good point. And I hear that from people all the time. So no, it's not, it really doesn't matter. So what you're modeling for your kids when the parent is singing, even if you can't even step touch to the beat and you cannot carry a tune like to save your life. It doesn't matter because what's important is that you do it, not how you do it. So this is another analogy I like to give is my husband's parents had really thick accents. They were from South America. But my husband grew up here and he was exposed to American English and he grew up speaking American English, whereas he didn't grow up speaking with the same accent that his parents had, right? So your kids have so many examples out in the world of perfected singing, of singing in tune, of they can, but what the parent needs to do is just to provide the model to actually do it. So this is what in our music classes, this is what we do is we bring the parents in and we say, I don't care what skills you have. I don't care what words you're singing. I don't care if you're singing the right tune or you can't move to the beat. Just do it. Because what's going to happen is the first lesson you're going to teach your child or inspire of your child is just to start doing it. Right. So once they realize, oh, this singing and like tapping sticks to the beat thing is something that our family does, right? They get that message. And then they see, oh my gosh, my parents love this. Look at how exciting that is for them. And so that's intriguing. Your child gets up and tries to dance too. And they dance to the beat and they start to, sing in a bad voice. And then they sing and then they figure out how to sing correctly based on all the other models that are out there.
Oh, that's so amazing. Yeah. And I think even pre-verbally, like when they're just making sounds, right? They're going to start making those sounds with the beat. And I just remember that's one of my favorite things too, is just hearing that beat come out of just like babbles. It doesn't even have to be words. It's just
oh my
the
gosh,
body moving. Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Well, and the thing is with Music Together, they have this saying where they say, you sing before you talk and you dance before you walk. Right.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. So here, one thing that is also important for the parents to know is just to be able to identify when their child is engaging in musical behaviors, because when you see that, you want to validate it. So like same thing with talking, right? So if you're teaching your child, we spend all day long teaching our babies and toddlers how to communicate. If you hear your child say cup, then mom says or dad says, oh, you want the cup, right? They are validating their attempts at communication and they're adding on. And so they're taking what the child knows and they're building on it. Okay. So if you have a baby, let's say, and they're 6 months old and your baby's starting to go, ah, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's a musical behavior, especially if you're singing. Like, let's say you're changing a diaper and you're singing, I don't know, some song that you made up, like, let's change a diaper, or whatever, right? You stop singing and you hear your child say, ah, right? So that is your child's attempt to join you. And we hear that a lot. Or I hear it a lot because I'm always looking for it. So one nice thing to know for parents is look, did you hear that? Did you understand what was going on there? Like your child is trying to engage with you with that little song that you're doing. So if you don't know to look at it, a lot of times you would just pass it up and keep on going with no validation, right? But you want to give them that, oh, cup, you want a cup? You want to give them that validation and build on it from there.
So yeah, so if you're singing your song and the child, when you pause and the child continues with that sound, what do the parents do next?
Yeah, so you can just keep repeating that. It's so nice when you have an opportunity to follow your child's lead musically, just like you would teaching them to walk or talk, right? Another thing that you've heard, Chelsea, you and I have talked about this, and you've heard me talk about this in class, is so when we're talking about actively engaging their brain, one thing that's really fun to do is to take a song that your child knows really well. And I'm talking even your child is like 6, 8 months old. Let's say that you've sung Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star every day since they were born, right?
Okay.
So even your 6-month-old or your 8-month-old, they know this song. They might not have the language. They might not have the melody, but they know this song. Their brains have heard it and heard it and heard it. So if you're singing to your child, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star, and then you just stop, your child's brain, because they know this song, is going to go from passively consuming this song that you're singing that to them to actively kicking their brains in to have to fill in that part that you left out, right? So sometimes like older kids will just sing it, which is fantastic, right? And other kids will just go, like they're like, come on, I want to hear the song. Or other kids will just audiate it, which is thinking the music. They'll just run that part through their head that you're not singing, because for all of us, it's almost like we can't stand to hear the end, right?
It's so not finish it. Yeah. It's not complete the sentence.
Like, right. Like not finishing the sentence. So if you're like, twinkle, twinkle, little star, how do we, about the world was so high, twinkle, twinkle, little star. And then you just walk away. Your child's they're going to have to finish it, right? Just like we do in our heads or out loud or whatever. So those kinds of little activities, that's just a nice focus so that your child's brain, is actively kicking in and engaging.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yes. It starts with you as the parent actually modeling it and being active in it to engage your children. And then I love that, just being able to watch and pause and just observe how your children will start to actually shift from passive to, oh, now I'm actively engaging because I'm actually going to finish this tune or finish this song. And it can come out where they're just in their head or come out as their babbles, or like you said, older kids continue. And I think it sounds like with the environment, when you're saying, to get them more active and put instruments in their hands, like this can go back to, I feel like how, we grew up, it was just pots and pans and like measuring spoons or whatever, just wooden spoons. And it doesn't matter necessarily what your instrument is. You don't have to have the piano or the guitar or whatever in your house. It's having that exposure to, can this make noise and make this and allow me to start engaging and creating beats or.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of parents, when they come to our classes, they say, oh, what instruments do I need to have at home? And I'm like, well, it's great if you want to get the same instruments that we use in class, but you don't ever have to. Yeah, definitely. You can just open your pots and pans or your Tupperware drawer and like go for it. Right.
Yeah.
And it's about the parents modeling always. So if you turn on a song and you open the pots and pans, your child might not engage musically with those pots and pans. They might start pretending to make something, or they might stack them or whatever. But if it comes from a parent or a guardian that they love and respect more than any others in the world, and you as the parent sit down on the floor, grab a pot, grab a wooden spoon, and just go off, your child's going to go, what are they doing? That's so interesting. Right. So like, I remember when my kids were little, like 1 and 3, right? And we could not empty the dishwasher to save our lives without them like getting in there and trying to and like
make some music.
Yeah, well, no, because they want to do what you're doing. So like if you are actively engaged, like how it is when you're trying to work from home and your kids are like, that's what mom's engaged in. So that's where I want to be.
Do. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Yes.
I'll
So,
type for you, or I'll just go ahead and sit right here on your lap and I can help you. Yes.
I can read that book. Yeah.
Oh, that was
So
this morning. Yeah.
yeah, so totally. So I remember that it's hard to do anything without, anything that's like really absorbing your whole attention without your child coming and going, what is it that you're doing that looks really important to you? Right.
Right.
At least in class, when we get new parents in, I'm like, hey, don't forget that your child, first and foremost, what your child's going to need to do in this new space is check out the environment, right? Because this is a new room. They don't know, they've never wiggled that baby gate. They've never seen themselves that close in that mirror before. They've never, seen whatever, hardware on the door. And so I beg the parents, what is going to bring their attention back is your involvement and your enthusiasm for this music stuff that we're doing. So if you go over and you say, hey, come on, don't wiggle the gate, don't wiggle the gate. Well, now you're engaged, you're kind of validating what they're doing.
You're engaging in the gate. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but if you are sitting on the floor and you are shaking shakers and singing and rocking your bodies and like tapping other adults, and your child is looking at you going, oh my gosh, what is this thing that my parent is doing? And they're so focused and they're enjoying it so much. I have to get over there. I have to see what this is. So yeah, so that's also another element of that is that the parents have to be involved and they have to show the enthusiasm for it.
Right. Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. So even if you say, oh, this morning we're going to do music, and you start getting into it and your child's going off, even in your own home environment, like going off on their own and doing something else, doesn't mean you stop and try to get them back. You just keep going and you just become like, eventually their attention will come back to you and be fascinated and then come back to you. So it's not this struggle of like, oh, if you are engaged in it and you're, like you said, enthusiastic and probably genuinely enthusiastic about it, it's going to make an impression on them.
Yeah, exactly. So compare that with like an 8-year-old that sits down at the piano for the first time, right? So your child enters 3rd grade. All of your parent friends are saying, oh yeah, this is a good age to start piano. My kids are taking piano. So you spend $150 a month for your child to go to a half an hour piano lesson every week. And they have to sit still for 30 minutes. They have to sit down. They have to pay attention to an instructor. They have to do only what the instructor tells them to do. They have to read left to right. They have to be able to physically manipulate their fingers and their hands or whatever so that the instrument they're playing so that they can play it correctly. And then when they get home, in order to get your money's worth from this $150 a month piano lesson, you have to get your child to practice every day or 4 days a week. So then this becomes a struggle, right? It's not something that we as a family are doing for fun. This is, I'm paying for these lessons. You're supposed to practice 20 minutes a day. You need to sit down and practice. And your child's saying, but I want to go out and ride my bike or I want to do whatever. And all of a sudden, like music becomes something so frustrating and it becomes a struggle between parent and child. Often that's what happens. So that's why when they're up until the age of like 7, 8 years old, even older, until they really like love music as an entity, not an instrument, but they love engaging musically, they're not going to have the self-discipline to sit down and go, oh, I want so badly to practice the piano today. Your child's not going to do that. And the other thing about that is if your child can't move to the beat and sing in tune because they haven't had a rich music exposure when they were young, when your child does sit down at the piano, it is going to be so frustrating because you can't teach your child rhythm and how to break up a beat using rhythm if they can't keep the beat. Right. So if you're teaching a child bum ba da bum 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 ba da, right? If your child can't go tap 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 tap, they're never going to be able to learn bum ba da bum ba dum bum ba da, right? So you want them to have that basic language. And what so many people in our society do is they wait until they're 7, 8, 9 years old and they put them in piano, and that piano teacher is going to pull their hair out with frustration because your child can't tap to the beat and they can't hear that when I sing, if I play twinkle, twinkle, little star, that's not the right note.
Okay. They won't catch that. Right.
Yeah. So the whole process is going to be so overwhelming to your child.
And it takes away from that essence of actually just being musical, like, or enjoying it. Like, cause then all of the desire enjoyment goes out the window and it's more like a job, and it's a hard job and a foreign job that, yeah, it's not going to come as naturally or intrinsically motivated even to do.
So the way that we like to introduce music is it has to be playful, right? It has to be something that they freely choose to do. It can't be something where we're like, you sit down and you shake these shakers. We're shaking these shakers for 15 minutes today. Like you wouldn't do
yeah.
yeah. So like you just offer the shakers and you start singing the song, and maybe your child picks them up and maybe they don't. Like maybe today they just want to watch, or maybe today they want to play their blocks in the corner while you are singing a song and shaking shakers. But if you do that enough times, what's going to happen is your child's going to turn those blocks into shakers, and you're going to hear them going tap, 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 tap.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So that's where it has to start.
Okay. I love that. Yeah. So it's definitely, as a parent, you are the model, and you're also observing and watching for those moments as your children pick up on it. But don't be discouraged if your child is still playing with the blocks or still playing with the dolls. Watch as they start to, like you said, tap things or maybe move their body, and you know that they're absorbing it and they're actively absorbing it, not just passively. They're starting to play that role.
And Chelsea, to compare it a little bit more to language, I know you've worked with kids and you've known kids that like their receptive language is great. Like they understand everything up until the age of 2 or 3, but they're really just not talking very much, right? And parents get very concerned. And so some kids just like it's a choice, right? Like their brain is getting it, they're absorbing. And sometimes it's just a really smart choice for that child to continue listening and processing what's being said. And when they're ready to talk, they'll talk, right? And of course, that's not always the case. Sometimes there is something organically that's going on. But for often, when we see kids like that they understand everything we're saying, they're just not ready. So it is the same thing with music. We do get kids. In fact, one of my very first families in music together 100 years ago, that dad brought the kids every week for years and years and years, right? Both kids. And dad was so into the program, and they listened to the music and they danced and they made up songs or whatever. But his older son didn't sing one word until he was 5.
Wow.
And the younger one was like 2 years younger, and he was singing up a storm. But the older one, he understood everything. He could drum to the beat. He could make up really cool rhythms and stuff. He was talking just fine. He just was like, nope, I am not going to sing. He just didn't want to do it. And all of a sudden, when he was 5, it was like opened the door, and he was like, now I'm ready. And so,
right.
and then I heard a couple of years later that the first grade teacher was like, how do you get this child to stop singing? Because all he does all day long is sing in class, right?
So you're right. Oh, yeah. That's so cute. Yeah, I do remember one of mine, Maddox, he would just absorb everything in music class, but then he would come home and he'd belt, and still to this day sings. It's always, everything's a song, and very receptive to lullabies and everything. He just definitely, but in class, it was just like, he needed to be he just needed to be quiet and absorb. That wasn't where he was actively, but he came home and did it. He definitely picked it up. He absorbed it. It's so fascinating. So I guess just to kind of even finalize is just thinking about like, okay, when they do hit that, age 8, and maybe we're not going to music class or doing the shakers, or I don't know, maybe we are. Are there secrets or tricks or anything like tips in terms of just continuing to expose them, even if it's not through formal instruments, or maybe it is, I'm not sure.
Yeah. So this is a question I get a lot, because kids age out of our program. They age out at 5, right?
Mm-hmm, right.
And it's not time when they're that age. It is not time to put them in piano lessons because of what I mentioned before, right? So I give parents a couple suggestions if they really want their child to pick up something different, to start something different musically, other than just dance parties in our living room and jam sessions and lullabies at night and making up songs in the car. Okay, so they've done that for 5 years, and they're like, okay, I think we're all ready for something different. So I have a couple suggestions that I usually give. Of course, there's things like children's choir or, musical theater options or things like that, or dance classes. But there's a couple of instruments that are super easy to start with that the parents can learn with their kids, right? So you're not paying any money for an instrument lesson. One of them is a recorder. So do you know what a recorder is?
I do.
And a lot of kids will learn that when they're like 4th grade or whatever in elementary school. And it's a great little starter instrument. So They're like $5, first of all, but it is a real instrument. It's not a toy. Get a few of them, get like 3 or 4, right? So that everybody in your family can have one. The parents or the grandparents or whatever, watch like 10 minutes of YouTube videos, learn like the first 3 notes on a recorder, and you can play all kinds of songs, right? So that's a great way to start, because a 5-year-old can cover holes with their fingers. That's pretty
I love
easy.
that. Yes.
Yeah, and if it's just the first 3 fingers on their dominant hand, that's a great way to start. So parents learn it first, watch some videos, learn like 4 songs. Honestly, it's so easy, and then hand it to your child and say, "Hey, do you want to try this?" Or wait until your child asks. So that is a really low commitment kind of instrument to start.
Yeah.
Right? But the other one is you can get like a used ukulele, right? If your child's even a little bit older, 6 or 7, right? Or 8 or 9, you can get a used ukulele. Make sure it's a real one. And again, not a toy. Right. Ukuleles are really nice because they have 4 strings instead of 6. And when you're holding a chord on a ukulele, it's not as hard as on a guitar. So I do see people that are like, "Oh, my child's 5, I'm starting them in guitar." Well, if you've ever tried to play guitar, like, it hurts, right? It hurts your fingers. It's hard. It takes a lot of strength and dexterity in your hand. And it takes that tenacity, that fortitude to keep going when your fingers are burning. So,
right?
Yeah, ukulele doesn't have that. So again, parents get one, kids get one, make it used, just put new strings on and have a tuner. Make sure it's always in tune, because if your child tries to pick up an instrument and play the 2 chords they know and it's not sounding right, they will chuck it as a toy. They'll start using it as a hammer or jumping on it or whatever. So the ukulele is also super easy. Again, learn 3 chords, get YouTube videos, learn 4 quick songs, pick it up, make it an option to your child whenever they're ready. You play a little bit every day just for fun as a model, and let your child go from there. I mean, it is highly probable that once they start an instrument like that, they will probably take off and go farther even than you have.
Okay. Wow. Thank you. That's so amazing. I do remember that now, because I know we got a ukulele in our house, and for that reason, so I asked you and you're like, "No, do not start guitar lessons at this young."
Yeah. You will kill your little love of.
Yeah. And I love the record idea, because it is true that most elementary schools, or many that is the common offering of musical class, is at 4th grade and 5th grade is the recorder. So just even if you can get them started earlier. And I love that those are both accessible, and just, it's like you said, not a commitment. It's not this monthly expense. It's just, and it's, you also just another way for you to actually connect with your child and engage with them.
Yeah, absolutely.
So fun. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Jennie, and sharing your wealth of knowledge with music and the brain. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It was my pleasure.
That's it for this week's edition of Project Parenthood. Remember to be curious, open, accepting, kind, and non-judgmental on your conscious parenting journey. If you have any questions about this episode, about your parenting journey, and/or topics you would like to hear more about, please reach out to parenthood@quickanddirtytips.com or leave a message at 646-926-3243. Project Parenthood is a Quick and Dirty Tips podcast. Thanks to the team at Quick and Dirty Tips, Holly Hutchings, Davina Tomlin, Morgan Christensen, and Brandon Getches. May you be happy, safe and protected, healthy and strong, and live with ease.